Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso and I'm here today to celebrate that this is our 300th blog. I remember all the way back to blog number 1. I really didn't know what was going to happen. It looks a whole lot different than it does today. And now we have 4 different trainers who are providing their input and feedback on the blog. And so just been really a whirlwind. So grateful. So many of you are listening to the blog and we continue to get very positive feedback. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your support and hopefully you find this helpful as you are preparing and potentially commenting on some of these proposals. And today we have one of my personal favorite proposals, which we did hold specifically for blog number 300, which is a derivative scope exception coming out of the FASB. So the FASB has issued this and it is near and dear to my heart. It is in response to the 2021 invitation to comment for the agenda consultation. A lot of stakeholders provided feedback that there were issues with respect to emerging transactions. One of them was ESG-linked features. So for example, if someone took out debt and the interest rate was, say, 8%, and they said, you know what? We looked at your board and your board only has men on it. We'd love to see a female on your board. If you add a female to a board, we will reduce your interest rate. Well, you can end up with a bifurcated derivative and have to fair value the value of that woman. Probably not the accounting that we were hoping for. So ESG-linked features and other types of transactions that over the years have caused problems were really starting to pop up. And they wanted to take a closer look at these derivatives in particular. So in July of 2024, on July 23rd, they issued this scope exception proposal, derivative scope refinement and scope clarification for share-based payment from a customer in a revenue contract. So really there are 2 elements here. The first one is the scope refinement, and then there's a scope clarification with the interaction between 606. So the application of derivative accounting to contracts with features based on operation or activities was really one of the driving factors here. And then when we had share-based payment from a customer, that was consideration in the contract. So the goal in this proposal is really to reduce the cost and complexity of evaluating these derivatives and to give better economic outcomes for them. A lot of times users indicated that fair valuing certain items didn't make a lot of sense. And so this would be an improvement, and also potentially reducing diversity in practice, because obviously as people have been trying to interpret, particularly around the topic 606 share-based payment, we can get a more specific outcome. So let's talk about issue number 1. Again, this one very near and dear to my heart. There is, in my opinion, an opportunity to add to it, and hopefully we'll see that when it gets issued as a final standard. But when we look at the broad and evolving interpretation of the definition of a derivative has been very difficult. And the complexity of applying scope exceptions to certain contracts with variables, which we call underlyings, based on operations or activities specific to one of the parties of the contract. And so because these contracts relate to performance of a party, measuring those at fair value is likely not decision useful. In addition, there's cost and complexity in making these evaluations to begin with. So one of the things they wanted to do was try to address the cost and complexity here. So the proposal would exclude from derivative accounting contracts from underlyings that are based on operations or activities specific to one of the parties. And it would also include variables based on financial statement metrics like EBITDA, net income, expenses, total equity of one of the parties of the contract. It would also exclude the occurrence or non-occurrence of an event related to the operations or activities specific to one of the parties of the contract. Now, there are a number of examples that are provided in the standard. One of the examples I would love to see added, if you've been following FinRec, they had put out a proposal with respect to programmatic investments and the application of CECL. And in the proposal, right, they put out a proposed chapter from the ANA Guide for Nonprofits. The conditional accounting was triggering, in some opinions, the concept of a derivative because it was contingent cash flows. And as a result, the recommendation that was in the proposal was to identify potentially a derivative. And they did indicate in the proposal that there was a forthcoming, this was obviously proposed back, I think in May, before we had obviously this issued, that this was forthcoming and would hopefully address it. But it doesn't specifically address programmatic investments or contingent or conditional pledges in particular. And I think that would be a great idea, specifically because it was brought up in that chapter. Having an explicit exception to it here would be really helpful. So I am hopeful that we'll get to see that maybe be added to the examples in the final version of this, because again, it's an exposure draft. It's our opportunity to provide feedback, and then we can kind of we can see what the FASB ultimately issues. So this is, in my opinion, a great example of really being responsive to feedback, that fair valuing these things does not make any sense, right? And that there's better accounting out there. So let's use the accounting. So there is obviously an exception here that contracts with a single underlying based on either a market rate, market price, or market index, or the price or performance of a financial asset or financial liability of one of the parties would not qualify, right? So in this scenario, we're talking about truly what the definition of underlying it was intended to do when we were looking at derivatives to begin with. In addition, if we had contracts with multiple underlyings for which some were excluded and others are included, would be evaluated on the basis of the predominant characteristic of the contract, right? So to decide whether the entire contract is subject to 815 or not, right? So we're going to look at the predominant characteristic, and the definition or how you evaluate that predominant characteristic would be changed to require them to assess the underlying that is expected to have the largest expected effect on the change in fair value. So that's what they're going to do here. So a pretty big proposal in issue 1. Now, issue 2 is clarifying an interaction between 815 and topic 606. And this is a scope clarification for share-based payment from a customer in a revenue contract. And there was a lack of clarity about which guidance an entity would apply to recognize share-based payments, such as warrants or shares received from a customer that are consideration. And so when we look at this, when you're in topic 606, right, most people assume that you're being paid in cash, but 606 does address non-cash consideration. And in particular, there is areas where they even talk about share-based payment, but there were questions about the timing. So here's an example from the proposal. If an entity receives share-based payment from a customer and those share-based payments are contingent on the satisfaction of performance obligations. So we haven't performed yet. So basically we're being paid in advance. Some stakeholders indicated that it's unclear to them whether those share-based payments should be considered at contract exception, a derivative asset under 815, or an equity security under topic 321, or should not be recognized until the entity satisfies its performance obligation under topic 606, because again, it's contingent on the satisfaction. So it's not really theirs. They would have to give it back if they didn't perform, right? And so this proposal would clarify that an entity should apply the guidance in 606, including the guidance on non-cash consideration to a customer, which obviously share-based payment is a non-cash item. And then under topic 606, the share-based payment should be recognized as an asset measured at estimated fair value at contract exception under topic 606 when the entity's right to receive or right to retain the share-based payment from a customer is no longer contingent on the satisfaction of a performance obligation. So in this scenario, if you're receiving shares or options or other equity interests, you would wait until they are no longer contingent, and then it would be based on the estimated fair value from the contract inception. So this clarifies that the guidance in 815 and topic 321 should not be applied unless and until the share-based payment from customer that is consideration for the transfer of goods or services recognized as an asset under topic 606. So this should hopefully reduce diversity in practice, and it would provide more comparable information between organizations. So this is a pretty big standard, or big proposal, really. And so this one is definitely something that a lot of people are going to have an interest in. There are a number of examples for issue 1 that are provided that would really change the types of derivatives. Many entities would no longer have derivatives and derivative accounting as a result. And obviously for option 2 or issue 2, really address some diversity in practice around when are we recognizing that asset? When do we have to go through the proper accounting? So comments are due October 21st, and hopefully we'll be able to see this come to fruition soon, because I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of organizations. All right, so that is a wrap on this week's blog number 300. So thank you again to everyone who has been following along since the very beginning and watching the evolution of the Genuine Learning blog. My name is Melissa Glasso. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.